Hello there and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chris Kay and here we talk about true vintage, vintage inspired, and everything in between. So stick around, grab a snack, get comfortable, and let's get on to the video. So before we get started today, I want to give a bit of a shout out to Crafting with Slavie. She is my sister-in-law. She's beautiful. She's very talented, and she helped me make this adorable little Valentine's Day card. So what she does is paper crafts on her channel. She does unboxings, she does tutorial videos, she does anything you could possibly want. We made this together. This is a little Valentine's Day card that I made for my brother. I'm not going to show you the inside because it's just blank, and also I already wrote a little message in there for him. So this is going to my brother for Valentine's Day. This is adorable. Like, I don't know if you can tell that it's 3D. Go check out her channel. She will hook you up with all the cards you need for loved ones, for any occasion. She's got you covered. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about true vintage versus vintage inspired, what the pros and cons are of each, and what I prefer for what I purchase. So first of all, I just want to say that being plus size, it's really difficult. It can be very difficult to find true vintage items in my size. I'm short, I'm curvy, it's really hard. So I have this here is the largest true vintage piece I've ever found, and it's still pretty small. This is a girdle with garters. And it's really beautiful. As you can see, it is quite big, but sizing was just so different back then. This is this is a size 32. I'm not sure what that would translate to in our sizes today, but I would guess that this is probably a size 10 to 12 in today's sizes, and it's just a little bit too small for me, but it's beautiful and I love it, and I'm so happy to have it, even though I can't really wear it right now. So there are also some other things about this piece that we'll get into a little bit later. So yeah, sizing can be an issue if you are kind of outside straight sizes. That is where vintage inspired really comes in handy. It's expensive. True vintage is expensive. Vintage inspired can be expensive. That's just part of the game, unfortunately. So vintage inspired, although I just went on that big rant about how expensive it is, sometimes it's not. So I got this on Shein. This is just a plain cardigan, blue, cute little heart, some buttons. It's a little bit bigger than I would have liked, but can't win them all, right? Too small, too big, she's never happy. So this is just a simple cardigan that I got on Shein, and it was actually not expensive at all. I think it was like $12 or something. So you can get things that have that vintage vibe without breaking the bank. But speaking of breaking the bank, if you want to get into really vintage inspired things, places like Unique Vintage exist, and I love Unique Vintage, but you got to get them on a sale because they can be so expensive. How cute. How cute is this? I got this on Unique Vintage on sale, and it was still like $50, but it's a great way to get that vintage look without having to put wear and tear into a true vintage item. Purses specifically, I prefer to do vintage inspired, just because with a true vintage purse, I worry a lot about wear and tear, and I like to use my vintage pieces. I think they're not doing any justice for themselves just sitting in a case, so I like to use them. And if using them is going to ruin them, that makes me sad. So I supplement with vintage inspired pieces that I know are going to get a lot of wear and tear. I just want to show this other piece from Unique Vintage. We already talked at length about purses, but I love it. I love this. Isn't this so cute? I got this to bring to Vegas because I had all these visions of walking down the street with like a little vintage dress and this little purse and my little heels, and like, you know, people would just part like the Red Sea around me because I'm a vintage girl. But you know, that didn't happen because my dreams are bigger than my future. So as I mentioned before, it is really hard to get true vintage in modern sizes, but I also wanted to touch base on something else. It is really difficult to get true vintage in good wearable shape. This here has got a lot of holes, some tears, some loose threads. It would be really difficult to wear it without ruining it, and that is a big deal to me. I think that these things deserve to have a life outside of a dresser, but I also know when it's time to say no and just let it be for a while. This one, I got so lucky because this is actually in perfect condition. This is a dressing gown. It's long, it's very beautiful. This is in perfect condition, and I wear this a lot. I wear it for photo shoots. I wear it just if I'm getting ready for my day and I just want to feel kind of like extra special. So this was a real wonderful find, but it doesn't happen that often for me where I find true vintage things that fit me and are in good wearable condition. So that is just a little bit of a downside to true vintage. I think they're still worth buying, absolutely, for me, because I like to have these things and kind of daydream about the life they had before, who wore them, who owned them, what they did in them. Maybe we don't want to know exactly what they did in something like this. So something else that is kind of a pro about true vintage is that if you can find something that fits, if you can find something that is in good quality, no one else is going to have it. You're going to be unique, you're going to be one of a kind, and people are going to remember what you're wearing because no one else is going to be wearing it. So those unicorn items they're diamonds in the rough. Like, if you can find one, grab it, because they will be showstoppers, they will be conversation pieces. And while vintage inspired can kind of have the same effect, more and more people are starting to wear vintage inspired, so it's not as unique as it once was. So it's not bad. Like, I definitely still wear vintage inspired a lot, and I see a lot of people who have the same items as I do. And yeah, it's something I'm okay with, but When I can find true vintage that works for me, it doesn't get better than that. And there are also just so many options when it comes to vintage inspired. Like, you can find things like these. These are adorable. Maybe not on me. Maybe not on me. But they're very cute and they're easy to find. Whereas true vintage sunglasses, you know, you might be able to find a lot of 90s and 80s, but true vintage 50s, 60s, things like that, they don't come around that often. And when they do, they're not in great shape. This is an example of a true vintage piece that I feel very uncomfortable wearing because the stone is loose and I'm worried about losing it. And so while I love it, I don't really feel that comfortable wearing it that often because I don't want to wreck it. Whereas something like this, I wear these all the time because they're modern, but they have a vintage vibe to them. And if I wreck them, if I lose them, if I break them, I'm going to be sad, but they're totally replaceable. Whereas this is not totally replaceable. So that is it for my kind of pros and cons of true vintage versus vintage inspired. This did not go as smoothly as I hoped. I wanted it to be like nice and structured and really easy to follow, but I'm still getting there. I'm still learning. Thank you for sticking around. If you stuck around to the end, I appreciate you. Leave any comments below. I'm always open to ways I can improve. I'm open to your thoughts. Just please be kind because the world could use a bit more kindness right now. So I hope you all have a great day. Stay safe, stay kind to each other, and we will see you next time.